Okay, for this part of the lab, I'm going to help you fill in this chart and help a little bit out with the math. So under type, of course, you're going to put the type of shoe, and in this situation, mine is a Nike. Force of friction. Okay, what are we going to put there? Well, you should have drawn a free body diagram, and the free body diagram is going to look something like this. You have your force of gravity pulling down. I'm running out of room here, so it's not going to be perfect. And you have your normal force pulling up. We know that these guys have got to be equal because the shoe isn't sinking into the table and it's not floating up in the air. So we have those two forces. You also will have the applied force, which would be, you were probably pulling the shoe backwards. And because you were going at a constant velocity, you know the shoe is at equilibrium. So we know that there was an equal and opposite force of friction backward. So the two types of forces that should have been the same in your notes there should be the normal force, which is equal to force of gravity, and our force of friction, which is equal to our force applied. So friction and force applied, you should have measured this before, okay? And you actually should have this force of friction higher up in the lab. You should have it on the previous table. So let's just say that I ended up pulling mine 0.3 newtons. Now this is not accurate, I'm just making up numbers here, okay? So let's say I had previously found that my force of friction was 0.3 newtons, okay? My normal force should have been the same as my force of gravity, okay? You should have found this also earlier in an earlier lab, or in an earlier table in the lab. That was going to be equal to the force of gravity, which was the weight of the shoe plus any weights you guys added. Okay. And because the force of gravity is equal to the normal force, we can just put that in here. So let's say my normal force, again, hypothetical, was 0.5 newtons. Okay, then if I wanted to do the math, my mu, that's what we call this little thing here, my mu, in other words, my coefficient of friction, our whole goal here, is equal to my force of friction divided by my normal force. So we're just going to plug these numbers in. My force of friction was 0.3 divided by my normal force, which was 0.5, okay? And I'm going to throw that in my calculator. And I get 0.3, or I'm sorry, 0.6. So 0.6 is my mu, also called my coefficient of friction, and believe it or not, there are no units for this guy. So you're just going to repeat that same process for each of your shoes, both for the table and for whatever other surface you had. All right, good luck.